Hi everyone, my name is Matt Williams. I'm the Access Fellow here at Jesus College at the University of Oxford. I'm also a politics tutor, and I'm going to give you my top tips, my 5 top tips about how you can be as competitive as possible in applying to universities like Oxford or Cambridge or Harvard or wherever. So my first tip is know your enemy. Not that I hope you think of me as your enemy, but know the process of applying to universities like this. It's quite a long, elaborate process. There are quite a few elements. For Oxford, for example, our first deadline is the 15th of October when you need to submit your application form. Then there are, for many of our subjects, admissions tests in early November. Then there may be interviews in December, and then the final decisions could come out in January. And at all of those stages, we publish quite a lot of information about how you can enhance your performance on our website. I'm trying to produce as many videos as I can to help people out. The bottom line is that it's in our interest that you know the process inside out, that you understand all of it, that none of it is mysterious and disturbing and lacking in transparency. The reason that's not in our interest is because it just produces weaker performances from people, quite understandably. If you don't know what's expected of you, it's very difficult to perform to the best of your ability, and that's bad for us. So if we can help, we will. It's our jobs, we're happy to. So if I can personally help you with an application to Oxford or similar universities, then feel free to contact me. My email address, matthew.williams@jesus.ox.ac.uk. It is our job, and we are more than happy to help. Okay, so that's the first thing. Know the terrain, understand what's expected of you. That's my first top tip. And if you need help, for goodness sake, ask for it. It's never a problem. My second tip related to that is set yourself SMART goals. Now, SMART is an acronym. It stands for setting specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound solutions to the particular problems of the application process. So what that means is that rather than setting yourself an extremely ambitious target as part of improving the competitiveness of your application, set something that is piecemeal, bite-sized, and utterly attainable that will enhance your performance. Because what happens is that a lot of people, when they apply to universities like Oxford, they think, crikey, I'm going to have to be the absolute top of my game, so I better do something completely outlandish. I better read, for example, I'm applying to English literature, I better read every single Shakespeare play that's ever been written, all 37 of them. The problem with that is that that's not a particularly specific target. I mean, I guess it is if you read all 37. It's also measurable, but it's probably not attainable in the time frame that you've got available, because of course you've got to do all of your high school work, your A-levels, you've got to do any extracurricular activities. Not that we use those in our admissions process at Oxford, but it's good for you and you should hopefully want to keep them up. You might want to continue with your social life. That's completely reasonable. So saying that you're going to read every Shakespeare play in order to prepare for a great interview performance is not a particularly smart goal, and it's not in particular relevant. It's not going to help you particularly. A far better goal would be to pick a specific Shakespeare play that you would be interested to learn more about, and that you think would demonstrate your motivation and your capacity to think for yourself. So, for example, a lesser studied play, maybe something like King John would be an interesting one to pick up. There you've got something that is a specific target. It's measurable, you know, once you've read it, and you might have some particular follow-up thoughts you want to do. You want to critically assess it. You want to perhaps assess the role of gender or finance or politics in the play, some specific thematic element that you want to pursue a little bit further, so that's measurable. It's attainable, given all of the other things you've got going on in your life. You could say to yourself, I am going to read bits of King John, maybe one act at a time, 20, 30 minutes a night, something like that. Utterly attainable. It's also relevant because it is going to enhance your thinking skills. It's also going to enhance the admissions tutor's faith that you are interested in the degree. And it's time bound. If you set yourself a particular limit, I will do this, I will read this play within this set number of weeks. It's completely attainable. So that's a SMART goal. And that way the process becomes much more manageable and also better organized. People that are well organized, they have set out specific targets for themselves by specific dates, get through them. They're much more likely to attain them. Whereas if you set yourself an extremely ambitious, nebulous target, you won't attain it. And therefore it's not a particularly smart approach to solving the problem of how to be more competitive. Okay. The third thing is don't say no to yourself. One of the most common reasons that people drop out of applying to universities like Oxford is because they psych themselves out. They say something along the lines of, it's not for someone like me, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve it, etc. The problem with that is that it's often not true. And being so self-deprecating is only going to cause you harm. There is another side to the story, which is that if you aspire excessively high, let's say your aspiration is to become, I don't know, president of the world, and you don't attain that, that can also be quite painful. So I can appreciate that there needs to be a bit of a middle ground. And here's where I can share my own story, which is that when I was 17, I applied to Cambridge, and I applied because my school grades were pretty good and many of my friends were applying. And so I thought, well, why not? I'll give it a try. But then I started to become almost obsessed with the university. I sort of thought that I have to go there in order to validate myself as a decent person. And I didn't get in because I was applying for a degree that I wasn't really that into. Just so happens, coincidentally, that the person that interviewed me then moved on to Oxford, and he then became my tutor at my college here at Oxford when I came for my master's, and then I covered his teaching load for a couple of years. So this isn't a story of me sort of seeking out a very slow, methodical revenge on this man who'd been foolish enough to reject me as a 17-year-old. This is a story about me putting too much emphasis on Cambridge, me thinking that going to Cambridge would make me a more enhanced version of myself, when actually I was better off going where I did eventually study, which is the University of Bristol, because there the course was much better suited to my interests, and therefore I did very well and came to Oxford to do a master's, a doctorate, and carried on. So I have no sort of bitterness against Cambridge. The right decision was made. I shouldn't have gone there, but I also shouldn't have made the process into something so negative, so sort of putting so much pressure on myself, because it just made the whole experience quite unpleasant. And so my advice is that you need to not say no to yourself, have a crack at something that's a bit ambitious, but don't assume that getting into a prestigious university or a very famous or old university somehow makes you a better human being. You're already likely a great human being anyway. So aspire to something, sure, but don't make it an existential part of your identity, because that could be pretty dangerous. Okay. My fourth piece of advice is that you need to be yourself. You need to be original. We get a lot of applicants, and the ones that stand out are the ones that are not derivative. They're not just churning out stuff that they've heard from somebody else. They are people who actually want to contribute to the debates. And it doesn't really matter what field you're talking about. If you can speak for yourself, that's great. Now, speaking for yourself means that you can express an interest that is not so obvious. You're not just following the crowd. You're thinking about things for yourself. Now, in some other videos, I've suggested ways you can do this. You can unleash your inner toddler. You can ask questions about the world around you and alight on a question that you really think hasn't been answered to your satisfaction, or indeed anyone's satisfaction, and double down and look into that in great detail. So, for example, if you're applying to study physics, you might want to ask, does my phone get heavier when I download apps onto it? Because that's a pretty cool, strange question. And that just shows that you're thinking for yourself. You're not just trying to answer the questions that everyone else is trying to answer. You're not just trying to regurgitate stuff that someone's told you. You're trying to really add value. You're trying to say something new. And that's really refreshing, both in the application form, the UCAS form, and also in interviews. So be yourself. And that links to my fifth suggestion, which is that you have as much fun as possible. I think one of the problems that people have when they're applying to universities like Oxford is that they view the entire process as hard work. And actually, the use of the word work is quite troubling, because what you're really doing, if you're preparing a very strong application, is that you're enhancing yourself, you're giving yourself superpowers. And sure, that can entail what we would often consider as work. But the problem with calling it work is that it makes it feel like you're doing it on someone else's behalf. It makes it feel like you're alienated from your labor, to use a bit of Marxist theory. So maybe don't call it work, maybe call it, I don't know, brain enhancement, cognitive expansion, whatever you like. But try and find the fun in it, because people that enjoy what they do it better. They do it for longer. They're more efficient in their use of their own resources. In other words, their own fatigue, their own nutrition gets used better, and they just do better. So have as much fun as possible. And for goodness sake, look after yourself. A lot of people start neglecting the essentials when they are going through quite a rigorous competitive process. They forget that they need to maintain healthy sleep patterns. They forget to hydrate themselves, which is a very bad idea if you want your brain to be working properly. And they also start to skip meals, and they stop forgetting the importance of nutrition. If you don't look after your body, your mind will be impaired. It's really as simple as that. So if you want to get the best out of yourself, enhance your brain as much as possible, give yourself those superpowers that will make you super competitive, you've got to look after body and mind. Okay, so those are my 5 tips. First of all, know the process, and if you don't know anything about it, that's okay. That's not your fault. Get in touch. We'll help you. matthew.williams@jesus.ox.ac.uk. Second tip, set SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound. Okay, and again, if you need some advice on how to do that, again, not a problem, get in touch. Third tip, don't say no to yourself. Aim high, but at the same time, don't assume that if you are incapable of reaching those heights, that makes you a bad person and that you therefore need to sort of be introspective and upset. It's not, the stakes are not that high. Okay. Fourthly, be yourself, have some fun, try and look into some puzzles that you care about. Don't just follow the crowd, don't just regurgitate facts. Add some value, add to the conversation yourself. And finally, look after yourself, have as much fun as possible, because whatever you then do, you'll do it better. Don't look on this as work, look on this as self-improvement. All right, really hope that we get to meet someday. Thank you so much for watching. All the best. Bye.